welcome back to the LFCMD. Now, some of you have been watching the videos, liking the videos, but not subscribing. Please subscribe to the channel to help us reach our goal of having 100 subscribers before the beginning of the season. Now, this video is about the evolution of our midfield in this coming season. Now, in the previous season, one of the few changes that Arne Slot made to the Jurgen Klopp team that we knew was putting Gravenberch as one of the two sixes, and in some games as a standalone six, with McAllister going a bit forward. But with this season coming, we have new additions to the team that play quite differently to how Arne Slot used some of the players in the previous season. And these new players at the moment are Milos Kerkez, who is going to be our new left back, and Jeremy Frimpong, who's going to be our new right back. And the profiles of these players, while Kerkez is a bit better defensively, both of them are very aggressive in attack. And as you can probably already imagine, that might leave us a bit thin in defense when the other team counters or catches us on the break, as you might put it. So we need to look at how Arne Slot might counter that, and this previous season is going to give us a few clues as to how he might do it in this coming season. Now, the experiment of putting Gravenberch in midfield as the six or one of the two sixes didn't only work, but it gave us a few clues in pressure situations. For example, when we went a man down, we saw Gravenberch coming into centre back to play there for a few minutes before substitutions were made, and we saw that he quite decently performed that role for those few minutes that he was in there in those few matches. We also saw him cover Trent on fullback when Trent was going forward, or when he was making substitutions to bring the likes of Curtis Jones when Trent was injured to play at right back. We saw Gravenberch assisting in that position a lot. And before this season, we might have thought that the one with a bit more defensive nous is McAllister, because he's very good at identifying where the ball might go and making quick interceptions, and he sort of has a similar profile in defensive thinking to what we saw in Thiago. Thiago was very good at anticipating what the player might do with the ball and intercepting, and while he still did that for us this season, we saw Gravenberch taking more of the defensive role, and I think that's a clue to what we might see this season. So we're going to have Frimpong, who plays predominantly very high on the right wing and plays in advanced positions, go forward and leave us a bit thin at the back. So we might have situations where if we're overloading on the right, we're going to have the two centre backs left on their own, or left with Milos Kerkez making a three, and we're going to need a player to fill in at right back in cases where we get caught on the break. So we're gonna see Gravenberch, I believe, cover that position because he's more adept to do it, but I'm not gonna be surprised if in some cases it's gonna be McAllister who's covering in that position. But I think in some cases Arne Slot might not even want it to get to that point. I think pressing is going to be more aggressive this season than we saw it in the previous season, and the signing of Florian Wirtz, for example, is one of those clues. While he's very good technically, he's very good creatively and very good on the ball, he's one of the more aggressive number 10s without the ball. And we saw with the use of Szoboszlai, who didn't have as good output creatively in the previous season, the demand on him aggressively in terms of pressing was very high. So we're gonna see situations where we avoid being countered a bit more, where we have a bit more control of the ball than we did in the previous season. Even though in this previous season we looked a bit more controlled, statistically we didn't have as much of the ball as in previous seasons under Jurgen Klopp. So we know from previous teams that he coached that Arne Slot wants to play total football where he has a bit more control of the ball. So we think this season might be opportunities for us to look at having more control of the ball. So we're probably going to see less counters, and we're going to see us having a bit more control over the ball. So like I was saying, when we have cases where Frimpong is going forward to play a bit further advanced in the pitch, one of the midfielders is going to have to drop back and drop into that right back position. And similarly, in cases where Milos Kerkez is bombing forward out on the left, we're gonna see one of the midfielders, likely also to be Gravenberch, dropping back to play in that position. So I think this gives us a clue of the kind of minutes or the kind of pressure and work rate that we're gonna expect to be put on Gravenberch. So I think in some matches we might see Gravenberch be given more of a break, and we might actually see a team that has both Szoboszlai and Florian Wirtz in the same team, because I think Gravenberch is going to need a bit more help in those positions. But also, given that we still have Endo, we might still see Endo coming in to help in a few cases, in a few games. But I think we're going to see less use of him given his advancing in age and how we want to control the football going forward. But I think this also gives us a bit more nuance on the midfield going forward. I think the addition of Florian Wirtz adds a new dimension to how we're going to play going forward when we have the ball. So I think Gravenberch is still going to be the primary receiver of the ball, taking the ball in from the defensive positions, from the center backs, with those short passes into midfield, and then either carrying the ball, because he's very good at advancing with the ball and carrying it forward, or we're gonna see him make a few passes that lead directly to Florian Wirtz. Now, one of the most interesting things about Florian Wirtz is how much possession of the ball he has in forward positions and how many passes he often tries in those forward positions. Now, because of the sheer volume of the passes that he's trying in forward positions, we see a decline in the accuracy of his passes. But I don't think this is going to be a negative thing. It just means he's not afraid to try the difficult pass that often opens up defenses and gets us in those advanced shooting positions or creative positions. So we're going to see most of the ball going from the defenders into midfield directly. We're gonna see either maintaining possession with the triangles in the midfield itself, or switching towards the wings and playing into the box from the wings. So I think we're gonna see a Mo Salah that's a bit more central and more advanced, maybe like a center forward, even though I don't think his starting position is going to be center forward, but I think he's going to have a lot of heat in the center forward positions, depending on what we end up doing in the transfer market in regards to a new number 9 or whatever type of player that we're going to sign in those positions. But I think given that Jeremy Frimpong plays very high on the right wing when he has the ball, we're going to see Salah move inwards, and we're going to see more play going in that direction. But what I think we're going to see less is the diagonals and switches of play. I think our switching of play is going to be more type of the shorter passes that lead with movement to switching overloads from either the right to the left. It's not going to be those Trent Alexander-Arnold long range passing from right back straight into whoever is playing in the left wing position, either be a Gakpo or a Luis Diaz, which we'll also see what happens in the transfer market given those two positions. So I think we might still see maybe the diagonal from Van Dijk to Mo Salah, which is the trademark connection, or we might see that diagonal from Van Dijk going straight into Jeremy Frimpong, because I think Salah is going to be a bit more inside and used more as a number 9. Even though I don't think he's going to start as a number 9, but I think we're going to see him drift into the number 9 position in a lot of the games. So there's going to be a lot of interchange, which is why for me, I would prefer that we keep Luis Diaz, because we saw him allowing that space for Salah when he's playing in the false 9 position, and we see a lot of creativity coming from Cody Gakpo in that left wing position. So I think the dynamic of our midfield is going to be quite interesting in this coming season given these new additions. But I think we're going to see a lot of work from Ryan Gravenberch